Welcome to the Friarside Chat. We are your hosts as always. I'm Vince. This is Brandon. We're a couple washed up college ball players. Now all we do is talk about baseball, more specifically San Diego Padres baseball, which makes our lives a little bit challenging to talk about at times.
Yeah, I mean, not off to a hot start. Or if you are going by April Fools, we're off to a really hot start. Really good.
Yeah, not ideal. So as it stands here on April 1st, Padres sit at 2-4 after losing both opening series to the Tigers and the Giants.
At home,
Yeah,
no
at
less.
home too, right? Which is usually freaking Padres usually play super well, almost like 600 ball at home. Usually.
Vince, wasn't it you that said that Mason Miller and Tatis and Machado were going to come back from the WBC all fired up? I have not seen a lot of fire out of at least two out of the three of those guys. One of them has a really cool walkout.
I would actually argue, and we can look at the numbers. Actually, that would be a good little segment here to kind of go through those early numbers. But I would argue that those three guys are actually doing well. Again, the numbers may not exactly reflect it, but I have some thoughts there. So maybe we can dive in a little bit later.
To clarify, you want to look at the numbers, but the numbers don't support it completely? Go ahead. Prove my point, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about that after we recap these games, because I think that'll kind of help segue. We'll contextualize how the games went, then I can kind of make my claim as to why they're doing all right. Okay, let's start off. So, the year started off, Tigers, Pivetta versus Skubal. We kind of knew that their work would be cut out for them, right? Like, you're going up against arguably the best starting pitcher in the game. And so we knew it was going to be an uphill battle anyway. And Nick Pivetta did not help the cause at all. I don't even know what his stat line was. I didn't even watch the game because we were at work and I was stuck in meetings. But it became really easy when I got out of a meeting, pulled up on my phone, like, all right, how are we doing? And it's like 6-0.
Not
like,
good, Bob.
Kind of glad I didn't watch it.
Good.
Yeah. So obviously, Pivetta just didn't have his stuff there, and then you can't really give that much room to, again, one of the best pitchers in baseball. And hey, how good is that rookie for the Tigers, McGonigal?
Impressive.
That guy looks great. Like, just,
He did.
Yeah, really, really impressive. Really, again, like, not even too much I want to touch on there. Again, too, I didn't actually watch that game, so I don't even have a whole lot of insight. But if we just want to just keep rolling here, Game 2. King versus Valdez. Padres, a little bit better game there. The bats were silent in Game 2 here. And then even though King was able to somewhat hold the game close, the bullpen breaks down a bit there. Estrada got in trouble, left some runners on base, and then kind of a questionable, at least in my opinion, Craig Stammen puts in Wandy Peralta in like a high leverage situation, like late in the game, runners on base. And I'm like, this is the guy we're going to go to? And sure enough, didn't really pan out too well. Padres end up dropping that one as well. Rocky start. So that was 0-2. And then the final game of the series there was my dog, Randy Vasquez versus Jack Flaherty. Vasquez shoved in this one.
Stayed hot.
As did the bullpen. Bullpen did great. And I believe that was the first night that we got Miller time with, as you mentioned, his gnarly walkout from the bullpen.
Are you ready?
Yeah, hopefully you can see that in person. I don't think I ever saw Suarez's entrance in person, unfortunately. Isn't that crazy?
That?
I know.
That's wild.
Never saw it. Never went.
Well,
but
go ahead. Wrap to the next one. Let's get this.
Just
because there's a lot to talk about. Oh, there's a lot to talk about.
All right, so that was good. Again, Vasquez, great. Okay, so that was a 1-2 series. They lose the series to the Tigers. Then we head into the Giants, who were coming off this rough series against the Yankees. They pretty much just got their lunch handed to them all freaking opening series there in San Francisco. So it's like, hey, maybe they got a chance here, right? Walker Buehler's first start against, who did Giants throw? Roop, I think?
Yep.
Yeah. Honestly, I thought Walker Buehler did just fine. I think he ended up throwing I think he went 5 innings, 3 runs, And even the damage that was done were, just kind of like a breaking ball that either didn't break enough or was left over kind of the heart of the plate, right? Like a couple solo shots I think he gave up. But
A fair
ultimately,
outing.
he goes one more inning and you got a quality start out of him. So honestly, like not too bad. Like he kept you in the game, but bats absolutely just fell silent against Roop. And I think that was the game too where Merrill had the late like ninth inning
Two
bomb,
run homer.
which was pretty sick. But of course, one run too short, too late, too little, too late. So Giants take the first game. Second game was Marquez versus Logan Webb, who was coming off a pretty bad season opener there. And I think it was the second pitch of the game. Adames takes Marquez deep. You could tell kind of from that initial first at bat, his breaking stuff just was leaking. It was just leaking all day. I think Jung Hoo Lee got like a curveball that couldn't have been more middle. He was just not on with his breaking stuff, and when he is not on with his breaking stuff, it is a long day at the park for for our boys.
Wasn't long for me. I turned it off quick.
Yeah, and then Kyle Hart comes in after that. Pitches all right, but I thought he was left in a little bit too long. I think he had like two solid innings. They roll him back out there for another one. He gets kind of snake bit there in his other inning. And then a little bit more bullpen struggles. I think Estrada actually had a rough one there too. So that was just kind of a gross game all the way around that game too for the Padres. They had some errors. Bats were almost non-existent, and the pitching blew up. So don't like game two. That is not pretty. It was actually that one was kind of funny. I just had that one on in the background, and I had like the post game on. I was like doing other stuff and just kind of listening from one ear. And I think it was who was it? Scanlon, Bob Scanlon, who does the post game shows. He's usually like Mr. like kind of like
Captain
that's all
Positive.
right. Yeah, Captain Positive. Dude, he was kind of ripping though. It was like great to hear. I kind of had to like turn and be like, dude, Scan's giving it to these guys. He was like, ugly game all the way around. They gotta clean this up. This is not gonna work, kind of stuff. And I was like, Scan, let's go.
Give it
So
to him, Steve.
so that kind of fired up the boys because then heading into the final game of the series here, Pavetta versus Hauser here in this day game. Pavetta pitches very strong, more like what we were seeing last year. And then we pretty much got like, dare I say, the new three-headed monster of Estrada, Morihone, Miller. Like could it be? But so that was always nice to see. And then the bats kind of showed up too. Like early on, it was throwing errors, oddly enough, by Matt Chapman, the like platinum glover, crazy. So Padres scored the first two runs on weird throwing errors by him, which was just crazy. But it might have been just enough momentum because then the bats woke up a little bit. Sheets had some clutch hits. Laureano continues to swing a hot bat. Yeah, it's just this last game today was hopefully a game that the Padres were able to build off and build some momentum in. So that covers it. Again, that was 2-4 total. The Padres lost both series, but that's essentially the entire week. Recap.
Nicely done, partner.
Thank you. Thank
Nicely
you.
done. I'm going to give your voice, your beautiful voice, a break. In that beautiful
Provide some
summary
color
of the
for us
week,
while I
yes,
drink
the
some
color
water.
is here. You ready for this? Here's the color. I'm going to go by way quicker. Scooble, it's a wash. You don't expect to win that game. You hope to win it. You don't expect to win it. Then you get game two. That was a little bit of a cause for concern, not because they lost two in a row and it's to start the season, but because you gave it to your bullpen, which is the strongest part of
Mm,
your team.
yeah.
And if a starting pitcher is going to give you a good outing and the bullpen's going to blow it, we're in for a rough go. Little cause for concern. Double cause for concern. Throughout all these games, guess what the offense didn't do? Show up once, except for today. And that gives
Yep.
me cause for a little bit of hope. But three runs or less. Ooh, and most of them were
Yeah.
two. Not good, Bob. Not good. When
Mm-mm.
you're having Marquez on the back, Bueller, like you said, a very fair outing. I thought he did great. There were a couple, his runs were not like he's getting tatered. It was a couple bad pitches, a couple good breaks. But you see Stammen also taking Lariano out of the lineup. Your best hitter by a mile right now to put in Castellanos, claiming he wants to get everybody in the game. This
Yeah.
ain't Little
This
League.
in Little
I
League,
understand that
boys.
you want if you want Castellanos in, start him somewhere else. Don't take Lariano out. There's
I
plenty of
know.
other pieces you can plug and play to get him in the lineup.
Yeah.
Yikes. And then we go on to who did we just play? The Giants? Are you talking about the 0-3 Giants who got spanked at home by the Yankees? Logan Webb didn't even have his best stuff. It was hard to watch these games, man. Even the runs we scored, not that pretty. Couple home runs? Yay. Everything else, weak contact galore, missed pitches over the plate. Today's game, as per usual with some Padres baseball, has to be aided by the other team messing up. We don't go
Yeah,
out and take games too often lately. It's them giving it to us. Chapman errors? Hardly.
I
The
know.
first baseman clanked. Catch the fucking ball, he said. Oh my God. Unbelievable. But I'll take a win. If we came into this podcast and it was 1-5 or
Which it
one
could
and
have
six,
easily
whatever,
been.
could
Yeah.
have easily been, I'm even more upset. But give them time. They're
Yeah.
settling in. Stammen, for the love of God, is not in his managerial strong form yet. He needs to figure it out. He's very nice. He's very pleasant. He's very calm. But
Right.
if you're going to be calm, guess what you need? Intrinsically motivated individuals and the energy to be brought from somewhere else. And right
Hmm.
now, the energy isn't getting brought from somewhere else. Guess where the energy came from last year? He's playing for the Giants.
I know.
Luis Arias is your day-to-day energy
I was gonna
buster.
bring that up. Yep. Like,
Exactly.
see how
So
fired up they
who's it going to
were.
be?
Like, yeah, I just see him,
Who's it
and
going to
it's
be?
like,
And here's the biggest issue with the energy. Lariano, that's just not that guy. It's okay. He's a workhorse. He's going to lead
mm-hmm.
by example. He's not going to be the problem.
Yep.
But then you've got Tatis. Well, it depends on how he's playing if he's going to bring the energy. Manny
Yep.
Machado, nah, man. He's going to stay in his lane and
Business.
be a workhorse for a 162. That's not him. So who's it going to be that's going to bring the energy? I don't know at this point.
That's a great question. I'm like looking here. I guess Merrill. Like if I gotta
Well,
pick a
yep.
guy, like, and we just look at like that homer he hit, right? Like, it was, of course, ended up being a little bit too late, but as far as, yeah, like trying to see who brings that juice, like,
How about the robbed home run? Brought some energy then. He's
exactly.
trying to steal
So,
bags. No, he
yep.
he is the guy, but to a degree, you need more than just one, and there's too many guys that just aren't. Cronenworth, no way. No
Yeah,
way.
not a
The one
juice
time I
guy.
saw energy out of that guy, it was in the playoffs, which it
Yeah,
was so fun to see. I
I
love
know.
I love Crony. I love Bogarts. Bogarts
Fired
is
up.
another professional.
Cronenworth fires me up.
100%. So I'd love to see more of it, but I just don't know who's gonna supplement Merrill, and it can't be
Yep.
one guy. So a little
Yep.
nervous about that
For
piece with
sure.
Stammen.
Yeah, yeah, those are all really good points. I think, and that's like that's one of the things, I guess, that you can't really quantify, right? Like we always dive into, talk about, everyone talks about statistics and whatnot, but that piece, you're exactly right. And when we were talking about too, like, Arise's worth, right? Like, a lot of guys or people are just automatically out on him because they're like, oh, he does this hit for average and blah blah blah. But I remember you and I talked about it too. It's like, yeah, like technically from like a stat sheet, yeah, he is like a little one dimensional. But we talked about, like, dude, hardly ever strikes out. He raises pitch counts.
Morale.
Yeah, exactly. And then, yeah, and then just that energy, that he brings to the entire team. Honestly, the entire organization. So if anything like that, I agree, is like the biggest thing, that him leaving obviously kind of leaves this little gap to fill.
Last last Arias note, because he's a Giant now, but worth noting for now, he had when he was in the lineup, our winning percentage was higher by a significant margin than when he was out of it. That's a
Hmm.
stat that you can hang your hat on. But the other part of it too is think of like your David Peraltas, right? David Peralta was the guy that walked through the dugout every time and banged on people's chests and got people hyped
Hmm.
up every day, enjoyed coming to the park. I know he wasn't a part of the process recently, but there always has kind of been a couple guys that just had that energy. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out this year.
Yeah, for sure. And then, yeah, as we promised at the top of this show, let's talk a little bit about how the offense is doing, because I think that's a key when we talk about. That's the next thing I want to get into. What are like the key takeaways from the series? Is like, what do they need to do going forward? I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. The offense needs to produce. Right, it's the same story we've kind of been talking about now for a couple of years, and it's not too surprising as a majority of the core is kind of remaining intact here. Let's see. I just brought up the stat page here. I want to read you off some of these OPS pluses. And again,
Let
it's
me
only
get
six
my
games
vomit bag
in.
ready.
And so, and for any of those listeners who aren't super familiar with OPS plus, that is on base percentage plus slugging, and then it's adjusted based off of your ballpark. So it's a pretty cool metric. But I believe its league average is should be about 100, something like that. Basically, it's like if you're a big league player and you're like kind of right in the middle of the pack, you should be at 100. The Padres have. Do you want to take a guess at how many players over that mark?
I don't even want to guess, but let me guess one.
Two.
Oh, double. Double as good as I thought it was.
Yeah, so it's Ramon Laureano. Of course, obviously she's been the one bright spot in the lineup, I would say, and then
Let me
Jackson
guess the
Merrill,
other.
109.
Oh,
Sorry, but yeah,
it's
Jackson
fine.
Merrill. Yeah,
Jackson
which
Merrill.
is
I think it's him.
probably aided from that homer, of course, and then yeah, everybody else is below. Like Manny's close at 95, Toddy at 86, but everyone else is bad, dude. Not even worth going into. Just bad.
It's not shocking. I feel that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, even just like from a, obviously stats, whatever, 6 games, can't put too much crazy stock in there. And so what I like to do, especially early on in these games, is just like, it was actually funny. I was sitting on the couch with Rach watching the game, right? And I was getting really frustrated. And she's like, what are they like not doing? And I'm like, well, I'm glad you asked. Let me tell you what they're not doing. And I was just basically just breaking down how it's like they're just not having competitive. Like, a lot of them are not having competitive at bats. I was saying how like they're not like you could even just tell by the sequence of how the at bat would go that a lot of the guys did not have a plan or they did not stick to the plan because it would be something like really ridiculous where it would be first pitch fastball in the zone not swinging, right, and then they're down 0-1 and then it's like hanging breaking ball or like breaking ball up out of the zone now swinging at it, and I'm like what do you what you know what I mean? Like,
What was the
what was
point?
your thought process going in this pitch sequence? And it was very non-competitive. Even when they get to 2 strikes, there was just not a lot of fight. They weren't running counts very deep. It was just like really frustrating. They did a little bit better, a little bit better. I think I started seeing some more in like the game against Logan Webb. Funny enough, partly I think because he just didn't have like his A stuff, so maybe that was helping them out a little bit. But yeah, it was just like I don't know. I don't know if it was just like the guys are still getting warmed up and don't quite exactly know like, oh, maybe their swings aren't fine tuned. I'm sure there's some element of that, but I don't know. It just felt very contrasted from last year. I mean, partly because they had the hot start, right? 7-0, right? It was last year. And I remember specifically talking about how they were doing all the little things right. They were not
Sure.
swinging at bad pitches. They were executing, right? They were getting runners on, getting runners over, getting them in. And it was just like, it just felt like it was the complete opposite story for a lot of these losses.
Yeah.
So that was kind of, I thought, again, outside the stat sheet, a little bit of what was going on.
Which is really funny because these are a lot of, veteran big leaguers, right? There's not too many young
Yeah.
rookie level guys in the clubhouse. So you'd think that the approach would be there, right? And to be clear, every single one of them has an approach.
Yeah.
Every single one of them saw a scouting report, but it all comes down to execution, right? And maybe discipline, and that might be where it's lacking when you deviate from your plan, like you were
Hmm.
talking about. I think one of the harder things too, though, is that there seems to be a lack of focus, and to little things like you and I can watch a game and see one of our guys have a long outing out on the bump, a long inning, lots of pitches, high stress. Well, when you see a leadoff hitter come up and get out on the first pitch, you're going, hmm, that doesn't feel great. But then you see the second batter get up and go out on one pitch, and you go, that can't happen.
Yeah.
That's something that you and I can say definitively. And it's not because we're pro caliber. It's not because we know better than them. It's just if you know baseball, you can't go out 2 pitches like that. And you just keep seeing things like that with the Padres right now. Granted, to play a little bit of devil's advocate, some of these lesser known pitchers are pitching well against us. They've ran into a little bit of good pitching. I've been watching a couple of
Yeah.
games and they're throwing really competitive balls, which sounds silly, but it makes a huge difference when a guy is all around the zone and every pitch starts in the zone but goes out. As a hitter, that's very uncomfortable. You're not getting any easy takes, and they're pounding the zone with multiple pitches. So they've ran into that a little bit, but pair that with maybe a lack of focus and maybe just a little bit of lack of energy, it
Yeah.
can eat you up real quick, and I think that's what we've seen so far.
Yeah. I think too, just on that note, and kind of why I wanted to say earlier, like I had a little bit of opposite take as versus what some of these stats were saying is, you know, it became clear watching the games that the offense was not working. And so that's kind of when I switched viewership modes into like, okay, like let's really like watch. Like I was like focused in on a couple at bats. And I will say like it did give me some like optimism on a few guys. In particular Tatis. I know that he's, like we always said, he's prone to swinging out of the zone. He, can get a little bit right, maybe antsy with the approach, right? Like want to do too
Sure.
much kind of things. But I saw a lot of things that I liked in his at bats, right? Like it was felt like a little bit less chasing. His approach was very kind of like right center. Like he was almost not like closing himself off a little bit, but you could tell he was trying to work the right
Intent.
side of the field, and I think that's just like maturity of him and his approach and just knowing that he, is athletic enough and his hands are quick enough to be able to turn on inside things. But as long as he kind of keeps his mind going right center, he's going to be doing well. And I did see that in a lot of at bats, and even a lot of his outs were pretty hard hit. Line
He's
drive to right
close.
field. Like
He's close.
yeah, exactly. Like again, that was like an example of I'm like, okay, his stats aren't coming, but I'm seeing the work he's putting in the batter's box, and I think that gives us like some optimism for the offense.
Sure.
Yeah, so even same thing, like even like Bogey a little bit hasn't had the
Yeah.
worst at
Had some
bats.
hard hit balls early
Machado's
on.
been kind of weird. Like I don't know, like he's had like been kind of weird this year. I feel like offensively and defensively, like he's had some really normal Manny looking at bats, and then like I mentioned, like some of those approach ones, he was just like taking some really awkward swings. Like, dude, you swung at that pitch, and I know you were not looking for that pitch. Why did you swing? Kind of thing. Like you could just
Hmm.
tell by his body language. And then even defensively too, he's been making some weird plays that he normally makes. So I don't know what's going on there.
Here, I've got something for you. It
Yeah.
just came to my mind.
Hmm.
To what degree is it possible that the clubhouse vibes aren't just they're not where they need to be? And give me a pause here because what I'm talking about is ownership stuff is still very up in the air.
Yeah.
Stammen and his managerial style and what to expect is very up in the air. Their new additions and their roles and what they're going to be on the Padres are still very much up in the air. There's
Yeah.
not a lot of concrete, and it does feel like maybe some of the main keystone players are feeling a little
Things aren't
going through the
solid or
motions.
something.
Going through
Yeah.
the motions a
Something.
little bit. There's just
Yeah.
there's it feels that way a little bit to me now that we talk about it at length here. But
Yeah.
we'll see. Hopefully something gets them going. Hopefully
Yeah.
this game helps them get going. We need
Hmm.
some positivity here. This has been the most downer episode I think we've ever recorded, and it's the
I
very
don't know.
first one of the
It's not like
season.
downer, just like realist, and it is like a tricky kind of slow start.
Yeah.
And maybe it's the opposite effect of what I was talking about. Like, what if the WBC was just like so amped, especially for like right the Dominican Republic
Mhm.
team, and just those environments that they got so juiced and so amped up from that environment that now it's like it's
Time
this
to brace
isn't
for 162.
like because right like they get so much energy from the crowd, right? And I remember that being like a talking point for a lot of the players in WBC. They're like, oh my god, this place is freaking crazy,
Bumping.
which is funny to say too because Petco Park, right, like sellouts every night, and it's probably one of the best energy parks in the whole league of the last couple of years. But again, we're probably reading too much into that. But anyways, let's move on. Let's talk pitching a little bit. Let's see. I wrote down a couple things. So yeah, we talked a little bit about how I don't know. We're not like super worried. I think the early games it was just like way too many walks. Like that was kind of the story for the Tigers series. I think they even like threw up some statistics that it was like the most walks ever walked by the pod.
The most walks.
Something crazy like that. And I remember we texted after like the first or second game where it was just like I don't know, not too worried about the pitching.
Yeah,
At least
you're
like
not
the
worried about
front
Pavetta.
end
He's going to bounce
starters
back.
and bullpen where
Yeah.
like they're gonna start throwing strikes. It'll be fine. But let's let's talk about like the Marquez situation. I guess we'll give Bueller a couple more starts. Again, we already talked about him a little bit. Are you
Wait.
worried about Marquez?
I'm not even going to talk about him yet because we're skipping over someone before him that we need right now. Give me a shot in the arm, some adrenaline. Randy Vasquez, your boy.
Yeah,
This
my
guy
dog.
absolutely shoved. And let's talk about him for a minute because it's worth noting. It
Yeah.
doesn't feel like a one-off, right? He had a great spring training. He
Yeah.
came in hot. He carried it over when we needed him to. He was the
Yep.
stopper of that series.
Yep.
He has been talking about how he changed his workout plan over the spring training. He picked up, Yu Darvish as a mentor that he would talk to after every bullpen, every little outing that he did, and it seems to have really helped him. It's awesome to see. I'm excited about it. They did like a little excerpt from King when he came over in the Soto deal, and he said Randy Vasquez has the highest ceiling out of all the people in this trade, and that was with Thorpe,
Yeah.
Brito, King, and it was all about consistency and being able to throw pitches for strikes and not be too fine. Well,
Yeah.
shit, we're seeing it now. I hope he
Yeah.
can carry it on, man.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, you imagine like, we've always talked about like develop. We want some guys who can develop, right? And it's like
Preach, sister,
it's been
preach.
really nice to see his development too, because right, like you can even go back like when we acquired him. I remember when we talked about him too, and we first starts we said he's like kind of wild, kind of whatever, but you could just see it. Like the stuff was there. Like you could see why they're so high on him because
And
everything out of
young
his hand just looked kind of filthy. He just wasn't really locating, wasn't going deep in games. And then
wasn't
right,
getting
we've just kind of
strikeouts
seen
either.
him. Yeah, we've just seen him inch, right? Like it's like his first kind of couple starts with Padres are very meh. And then we had the year where he was actually pitching. Actually, yeah, last year he was pitching decent, but he just like couldn't get past like the fourth inning. And then you're like, man, if he just got to click somewhere. And then yeah, it's nice to see again, like taking the tutelage from Yu Darvish. Like what better mentor could you get? You know what I mean in the pitching
for a
world,
guy
right?
with a large arsenal of pitches. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, anyways, yeah, definitely give some flowers to Vasquez after that first start, and hopefully he can carry that momentum and be that solid, kind of reliable guy moving forward. So, absolutely, I agree with you. But
Now you were asking about Marquez. Is that
I
what you're doing?
was,
Okay,
I
let's
was.
bring them tone down. What was the question, teacher? What
Do
do
you think
what
he's
do we
gonna?
think?
Do you think? Are you worried about him? I know it's one start, but are you
Yeah,
worried about that five spot?
I think he's gonna get at least 3 starts, no matter how bad they are. And I think he
Yeah,
deserves three. This is a
yeah,
guy who's been in the league for a decade. Give the guy a break. He's got to get used to everything. He's coming off a pretty bad year. He's clearly working on things. And then there's just going to be days as a pitcher you don't have your stuff, and that could have very well been that day. I'm not super low on him, but holy crap. I mean, he's got a shorter leash than most for me.
yeah,
I hope he does well because I still do think he can. I mean, we talked about it. We think he can do well here at sea level. Just dear goodness gracious, make it happen.
yeah. Yeah, I know. I know we were both kind of high on him, and I don't want to be the guy who's like out on one start. I don't really like believe in that, but I think
Didn't look good.
he's got a couple things like going against him too. Just like with waiting in the wings, like your
Canning,
favorite JP
Waldron,
Sears,
no.
JP Sears, yeah, Waldron, Griffin Canning when he comes back, I think might be very high on that list. Even I don't know if Brian Hoeing is in that mix at all either, but potentially. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't
And a
know.
couple young
I
prospects
just got a
too.
weird feeling after that game, and again, hopefully I'm wrong because this dude has had a lot of great seasons in the bigs, but I don't know. It was almost the opposite. I almost had kind of like the opposite effect of like the Vasquez effect, where it was like, he's not pitching well. Like years past, like he's not pitching that well, but I can see it. As opposed to like Marquez, I'm like, well, he didn't pitch that bad, but I don't know. I just wasn't seeing it.
Hmm.
It just didn't. I don't know. His pitches didn't look like they have that bite on them. His fastball kind of sits in like those mid low 90s and looked kind of flat. I don't know. Again,
Are you
hopefully
saying
he
he's
can.
washed? Is he
Hey,
cooked?
hey, he might be a little bit cooked,
We'll
but
see.
hey, but what is nice is he's got one of the best bullpens in the league behind him, and I think they are starting to get into stride. So only time will tell. I think his next start. Actually, that's a good segue. Let's to wrap things up here today. Let's talk about the upcoming games. We Padres are traveling to Boston. So going to be playing at Fenway Park.
Boston.
The 1-5 Boston Red Sox,
Oh,
mind
good. They'll
you.
get right against us. Is Bueller pitching on that in that series? Because that'd be interesting. Fun storyline.
That's yeah, he must be right because Pavetta went, so it'll be King. Yeah,
Vasquez,
King, Vasquez, Bueller.
Bueller.
He should get
That'll be
game
a
3.
fun one, dude. That'll be
Yeah,
fun. They
that'd be a good
kicked
one.
him
A
to the
little redemption
curb.
potentially. And then the Padres head over to Pittsburgh. I wonder if they're going to match up with our guy Skeens. I don't know. Did they face him last year?
Nope, never.
Yeah, I didn't think so. I remember because we were like kind of kept our eyes out for that, and it like never happened. So, that'll be interesting to see if that matchup happened. And the Pirates are 3-3, and familiar face. They have O'Hearn. Ryan O'Hearn is on the Pirates and doing pretty well.
Let's not forget that if the Padres play well, they can beat anybody. I don't care who we play. It'll be fun to
Totally.
watch. Hopefully they get in stride.
Yeah. So yeah, again, it's just like and you know what? Since we are the eternal optimists on this show, and like you said, we weren't super optimistic earlier. We actually, in fact, are quite the opposite. We'll leave you with
Contrary
this.
to this episode, go ahead.
Some of the best, bonding experiences for teams are these longer road trips, right? Like we experience this in our things, like even if like early season, whatever, you're grinding. It's the preseason grind. You're spending the early outs 2 days, the whole thing. And even though you're excited for the early games, it's still just a grind, right? And then you hit the road, and you're just with the guys. You're on, well, I was gonna say buses, not these guys. They're on their private jets,
Playing some poker on the plane, baby.
yeah, and honestly, those times sometimes are they just simplify your
get you
life
right.
a little bit, because it's weird. It's the opposite side, right? It's like when you're at home, you've got your comfort, you got your routine,
You got your kids.
yeah, but when things aren't going right, sometimes you just need something to change, right? And sometimes when you're on the road and it's just you and the squad, it's focus. It's single focus. You're like, we're here for one thing. We're here to get down to business and win some ball games. So hopefully that's what this road trip can do. Hopefully it can be, they can take some of the momentum from this last game here where pitching was working, offense was working, and yeah,
Hey,
kick some ass, baby.
let's hope they're playing some Mafia on the plane, drinking some brews on the plane, getting down, getting away
Getting
from
after
the
it.
familias, and bonding as the boys. The Pods can do it. It'll be
For sure.
fun. Give me one last thing here. Who's going to be a star from here to our next episode? Who do you got? Who you got?
Who I got? Give me Andujar.
And Duhar. Okay.
Yeah. Same thing. Like similar. We were talking earlier about how like the stat line might not be great. Some of the things I was seeing in his at bats, I really liked. He's got some juice for sure.
Give
So I feel like
give
he
me
might have a big
Manny the
road trip.
Magician. Manny the Magician. That's who I got.
Pods go as Manny goes, as we always say on this show. So I hope you're right, brother. All right, sweet. Well, again, Padres take on Boston. Up next, we will see you all next time. Hopefully we have some great news to report. And thanks for watching. Fireside Chat is out of here. Later.
Out of here.